Nice. Good to see everybody again. My name's Alistair Leith. I'm the Managing Director of the Online Astronomy Society Academy and runner of various other projects, which are too many to mention here. I think too many of you probably require a little introduction now, so I'll get on with the purposes of this video. It might be a bit belated for those who are taking their exams now as I sit here in June 2023. Strangely enough, 21st of June, the summer solstice is now here, and the second batch of our GCSE astronomy students for 2023 have now set their exams, and good luck to them. So I put a timestamp on this video now. Oh, the irony, it's summer solstice and our second year GCSE astronomy have just set their exams. Bit of a coincidence there. But anyway, enough of that. Nigel Marshall, for the last couple of years, has presented some interesting and useful videos on exam technique and the best way to answer exams for GCSE astronomy. I wanted to produce something a bit different because sitting exams, that's one thing, and that technique will either vary slightly from one subject to the next. And as we're offering more than just astronomy now, we're offering maths, and I'm captaining chemistry into 2023 and onwards. So I thought I'd say a couple of words on that front. I decided to produce the chemistry course and indeed work with an eco sabo on the maths course for a number of reasons. Personally, because I never felt the education I received was that great when I was at school, and I'm not so sure moving forward. But I have heard that a number of other institutions don't present it or teach it quite in the manner that it should be taught. I don't mention any names here. I'm going by personal experience. But what I wanted to highlight to you guys now is ways of learning, as you can see here on the OneNote. You might think here, yeah, I pick up a book, I read it, I make notes. And for you, that might work, but there are people where it is different. And believe it or not, there's various things that can affect the way we learn and how we learn, which I want to discuss with you a bit here. Now, I do urge you to see this all the way through and try to take the blinkers off because I know I'd be wearing them. I'd be like that. I don't really want to know this. I know how to learn. But there may be some things here that I have to say, which took me years to learn myself before I finally realised it after my GCSEs, A levels, and ultimately my higher education. That would have come in handy had I been aware of it now. These tips are more that I've learned about as a trainer. I want to disseminate onto you. Firstly, there's the obvious ones where you might have days where you've had a textbook open on the table and you've been staring at it and staring at it and staring at it. And absolutely nothing seems to be going in. Nothing, nada. You reread the same thing over and over and it's not going in and you really could not be bothered. Have you ever had days like that? For me, it was most days when I was in the library. And also, there's the distraction problem where the best one in the world, you've got your little timetable, you're going to study this on this said date at this said time, you're going to put this amount of time in, these are your breaks. But it doesn't really work out that way in many cases. And quite frankly, it's because we simply are not ready. Our brains are not conditioned to be learning at that particular time in that particular place. I want to talk to you about not just that, but other couple of things about how we learn and the way we learn. So, for example, if I can just bring this slide down a little bit here, which you're probably thinking, what? Never seen that before. You haven't seen GCSE chemistry yet. But anyway, the way we learn matters an awful lot. The way we learn in school, the old traditional way was there's your textbook, you read it, there's the blackboard, you copied it. This is your pad of A4 paper, and you all sat there like secretaries, jotting down what was being said and written up there. Because how many people can write down and learn at the same time? I couldn't do it. And your hand is literally going like this. You're getting writer's cramp, scribbling out everything. And if you're like me, you've gone away thinking, I can't read a word I've just written. What have I written? So suddenly you're at a loss. And this stuff's important. This stuff is examinable. If you don't get that stuff off the page into here, you're not going to pass any exams. And straight away, you've got that sense of tenseness here, thinking, What's he been talking about? Where did he get that from? So I want to talk to you a little bit about that as well. So if you look here at the letters here, I mean, by all means, feel free to read them. But what I want to draw your attention to most of all, and this is something I had to follow when I was teaching ICT to some unemployed people, there is a system, basically commonly called VARK, VARK, and it's basically how people learn. So at the top of that, you got the V. These are your visual learners. So these are the people who prefer to learn from graphics, from charts. These are the people who doodle and scribble diagrams. These are the people who prefer, maybe like me, I think I'm more of a visual learner. You sit down, you look at tutorials. You like to look at things on whiteboards as teacher or tutor scribbles them out. And you like to copy that and you like to annotate that, and that's how you learn. Fair enough. Nothing wrong with that at all whatsoever. And I'm going to make a questionnaire available to learners across the cohorts, across the faculties, that's the different subject areas. We can fill that out and find out what learner you are. As an academy, I've always tried to cater for all of these in as far as I can, understanding that people learn in different ways. So that's your visual learners, and people that see things, and people that follow graphics and make their own notes and annotate. Next, you've got your audio learners. These are probably your podcast viewers and the people who like to listen to the audio version of maybe what they're seeing. And some people learn by listening. Interestingly enough, added to that, some people, especially language learners, actually end up going to bed listening to a tape and they fall asleep to it. And then in the morning, they've woken up. I know that for a fact because one night I was in a foreign country, wanted to learn the language. I'd needless to say, I'd been out at the time. Enough said. There, you can work out. You can fill in your own gaps. But I decided to listen to the rest of the tapes. I put it into my personal stereo. It was a Walkman in those days, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It wasn't a CD-ROM, and I put it on auto reverse, and I put my headphones on, and there were fresh batteries, and I pressed play, and I fell asleep to the thing. And it played over and over and over. And in the morning, I woke up, and as you'd imagine, after 8 hours or so non-stop playing, I had killed the batteries, and I thought nothing of it. So, getting dressed in a hotel, going downstairs for our continental breakfast, down we went, and out of the blue, there were some people, our cohort on the package holiday we were on, who were complaining about the lack of breakfast and coffee. And out of the blue, I asked for it in their own language. Yeah, out of the blue. I had no idea I'd absorbed that information, but somehow out of the blue, I asked for coffee in their own language. And they quickly delivered it. So suddenly out of the blue, I'd learned half of that language. I won't say what language or what country, because at the moment, I think the current climate, I don't want to invite, any debates, but let's just go with that. So I learned that language via an audio technique in my sleep. So it can work for people, and that subliminal learning, which is what it's called, subliminal learning can work for a number of people when they're playing something in the car, playing something when they're doing things. They can be learning that way, and that can work for a number of people. And if the audio can be delivered in such a way it doesn't have to be complicated, but complemented by the visual, great. Then you got the read-write learners. These are people who've got their books, they scribble down, and they've got their tons of A4 paper, and they've got their you get the general idea, don't you? You've got your workbooks and everything else, and these people are literally reading through, making notes, and so on. Again, no problem with that. It was the old-fashioned way of doing things. We like to wade through textbooks, reading these things and going through it and making notes and coming back and hopefully digesting it later. And that was the traditional way schools have taught. PowerPoint presentations up there, maybe a bit of visual in that too, and you're scribbling down, and the visual is that the audio is probably the teacher. So you're using a variety of these different learning channels as you go. And again, we've tried to cater for people if they prefer that. That's why we've got downloadable worksheets for people in many cases. And then you've got that, and I think I've got that spelt right, the kinesthetic learners. Now, these are the people who learn by doing. These are the people who like to watch what someone's doing and then giving it a go. It might be welding they might try, or in my case, I was learning to solder the other day. So I've watched somebody on YouTube doing it, and I've thought, okay, let's see if I can do that. And by having a go and doing it, I've learned. People learn to drive this way by doing. I mean, you can't easily learn to drive out of a book, can you? You need to get behind the wheel and drive. So this is where kinesthetic learners come into play, but they learn by doing. From a chemistry point of view, that might be actually doing the experiments. From a maths point of view, that might involve actually doing the formula and going through the formula. And don't forget, at the end of the day, no one person is essentially pigeonholed into any one of these four. You might learn using all methods. You might learn using one or two. But either way, there are questionnaires you can go through which will tell you what is your preferred way of learning. And when you know that, you've got a better handle on how best you learn. Visual learners may be better off on YouTube, for example. Audio learners may be better off on YouTube. That's why I produce the videos. And as far as the textbook goes for my course, well, I'm taking the notes from that. So I guess I'm referring people to that textbook. So if you're going to be a textbook learner, then you can follow me along using that and annotating that as you will, adding the notes to it as we go along. So these are the things to consider when you are learning, is how you learn. And then the other side of that is, let's moving on. Let's see if I can scroll down. The other side of the thing is I've got negative experiences there. I'll come to that in a minute, negative experiences. It is important. I haven't got anything here, but I will type it. Another thing to consider is time of day, or time of learning, shall we say. So what time is the best time for you to learn? Now, believe it or not, that does have a bearing, because different people learn best at different times of the day. You get some people who are early risers. Yeah, that these people get up at 5 a.m. and they work till 6 or 7, go and grab a shower, that then get ready for school or get ready for work. These are your early risers. Pardon me. I was never one of those. For me, I was always a nighttime learner. And that is to say, in the morning, I was never a morning person. So even though I was told, oh, you get your best studying done in the morning, that might work for you, matey, but it doesn't work for me. And I didn't realize that. I was young, I was still learning about myself. But as time went on, when I went through the day, when I had my dinner in the evening and went upstairs, I found suddenly my brain was engaged. And suddenly I was far more amenable to learning, picking up far more stuff, and things were staying here. And for me, that active time was between about roughly 9 and sort of 3, 4 in the morning. Yeah, where most people are asleep. So that was my active time for learning, and that worked for me. Not ideal, because I'd wake up going into college shattered. But what it took some years for me to learn was I was actually an early morning learner, and I think that's what you need to sort of ascertain. When are you at your most active? When are you at your most alert? When are you at your most? Because for some people that could be in the late afternoon from 3 o'clock onwards. That could be first thing in the morning if you're one of those. It might be when you've come home at 3 or 4. That might be also when you're quite alert. Or it might be getting into the evening, same as me. So you've got that period of time when your brain is more reactive, responsive to learning than it would be normally. And that time's important, and that is when you should be scheduling your study time for when your brain is active and when your brain is going to be absorbing. Because that will be the time when your brain will absorb. And a lot of people have that window of learning when they can absorb. And it took me decades to learn that, much to my loss, because I wish I'd known it back when I was doing my GCSEs and so on. It wasn't until I got to my degree that I realised I was doing a lot of my work at night. And quite frankly, reading through the exam papers, looking at my textbooks, that was when a lot of the stuff sank in. And that was when I went into seminars at university. I was better prepared because I'd read about it the night before, and it stayed there. And that was because I took advantage of my window of learning, if you like. Let's call it the window of learning. What is your window of learning? What is the best time of day for you to learn? But above all, while I'm on this subject, if it's not going in, it's not going in. It's no point sitting down there trying to cram it in. If it's not going in, go and do something else. Take a walk, go for a ride, play football with your friends, do a bit of gaming. I'm not saying overdo it, but You'll be surprised as to how more productive you are if you go away, have a bit of a break, chill out, and come back. You'll be surprised as to how more productive you are. Because being sat at the computer or being sat at your books all day, every day, doesn't necessarily make you productive. If you're learning during that time, great. If you're not, you're wasting your time, putting unnecessary pressure on yourself. Go away, and you'll be surprised when you go away. You have a shower, or go to the gym, or play football with your friends, or do what you normally do to relax and chill down. Just how much better you might be when you come back to study something. So that's my advice there. Another thing, and I actually saw this on LinkedIn today, believe it or not, and in fact, it's that experience which caused me to produce this video. Negative experiences when it comes to doing courses. That one I know only too well. And a bad teacher can make or break a subject. It really can. I'll give you my brief story. I was doing my pre-GCSE courses and I was doing geography. And my geography teacher, I will mention no names, you might know the school, but I'll mention no names. And I had the most dreadful geography teacher you could imagine. He was racist. Yes, he was back in those days. He was quite derogatory towards his students. He was quite a narcissist overall. I won't go into the details, but it ruined the subject for me. I did not want to know about it. And I thought all these years down the line, being quite anti-geography, geography's a waste of time. Who needs geography? Where do you see it requested on the job application? Geography is not it's people just, that was my attitude towards geography. I don't want to know. And it was sad because I was in the works a few years ago and I found the book. I think it was Easy Geography and Easy Bites. And I picked the book up and it was just a small handbook kind of thing. I bought it for my son. And I was looking at it, and the teacher, the author really was a teacher. He clearly had a lot of passion in his subject. And reading the book, it was an interesting read. But as you started reading it, I'm starting to get PTSD from back there and thinking, I can't, I can't, no, I can't, I can't. So that teacher essentially ruined it for me. And that's a psychological thing that with the best will in the world, if I can't see past that, I am dead in the water. That's not something any teacher can do. And a teacher can try and change things and find technique, but you eventually have to get round that. And let's face it, we are offering some of those subjects where people's experiences can be less than favourable. Maths being the king. And, believe you and me, I've come off the wrong end there. When I was doing my GCSE maths, I wanted to be an astrophysicist. And the maths, I was one of these lazy at school. I suddenly realised the importance. I pulled myself together. I studied hard. I did evening classes. But even after all that, I was only given the chance to sit at intermediate level GCSE maths, which back in 1989 was only really looking at angles, percentages, and a bit of Pythagoras theorem, not much more. Early trigonometry, that was it. Anyway, I thought, well, I've got a grade C. I mean, I can have a go at the pure maths, can't I? Can't be that hard. I mean, it says I've qualified for it, so I've got a chance, right? And I went from my GCSE C grade intermediate maths, and I went in to do my pure and stats at Newham Community College. And ouch, I did not have a clue. It might as well have been in the foreign language. Not one of us in the cohort could make sense of what the teacher was saying, what he was teaching. Trigonomic identities, what are they? Proving this, what is that? Prove that this is identical to that. What? I didn't have a clue. Needless to say, guys, I discovered another part of myself at that college. I also had dyscalculia, and that didn't help either. So my astrophysics career at Edinburgh Unit or St Andrews, where I wanted to go, was definitely dead in the water. So that was a lot of the reason why I've started up this academy, and a lot of the reason why I put together this video to say I appreciate there could be some bad experiences. I appreciate, schools, bad teachers, bad teaching methods can all upset your experiences in any kind of subject, in any subject, be it in maths, be it in English, be it in geography, whatever. Equally, let's turn it on its head. When I was doing my GCSEs, I had the world's best history teacher, and he too was at Langton School. And I wouldn't have dreamed of taking it to A level, but he made it so interesting at GCSE. When he talked about the Battle of the Somme, for example, you could hear those guns. He was that kind of teacher. And, just as, astronomy has lasted with me as a hobby for the past 30 odd years, history kind of stuck with me too, because the way he taught it, he left a lasting interest in it, which has kept me going since. It's a very well done to Mr. Ellis there at Langdon School, happily mentioning his name. But again, it's these experiences which now, being a teacher myself, I kind of take forward. So with negative experiences, it's kind of hard. I think it's a case of, coming into the subject with an open mind and trying to understand A, nobody's ever going to ridicule you for getting it wrong. B, it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn from adverse. That's how we learn. And of course, it's by making mistakes that we learn how to get it right next time. And it's better to make mistakes now than in the exam. So make mistakes. And also the other one, silly questions. There's no such thing as a silly question. Oh, there is one silly question. The only silly question there is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is the question you don't ask. You ask any silly question you like. There are no silly questions, because that silly question that you think you should already know, that silly question which at the end of the day you think you should have the answer to but don't, might be the underpinning question that without the answer, it's going to make everything else fall flat on its face. So any questions, and if you're in an online thing and feel a bit awkward learning it or asking it, email me, not a problem. We'll email any of the other tutors. We are good like that. And we will give you that answer. And there is no reason that nobody else will know about it, and that you will hopefully go away better informed. So, we are, at the end of the day, you're all adults as far as we're concerned, and you're here to get a qualification, whether it's going to be in astronomy, my chemistry, or with a Nico Sarbo's GCSE, ultimately A-level maths. Um, you know, we're here to help you. And ultimately, any bad experiences, we hope we can knock these aside. Every teacher is going to have their own learning style, make no mistake. The same material we're delivering, but we deliver it in different ways. I use OneNote for my presentations. I've got my reasons for that. Other people like Nico, like Dr. Marshall, uses PowerPoint. There's no right or wrong answer. They do it the way they're comfortable with. For me, I like to experiment, which is why I use things like OneNote. I use graphics tablets to scribble with, and so on. But either way, I wanted to say these few words to you because I don't think they're said often enough. And I wanted to, relay that back. So not just as your tutor, if I have the honour of becoming that, but also give you some of the foundations that help you to get started from the get-go. And above all, let me say this: when you are studying, always refer to your book and your notes, because when it comes to taking the actual exams, the answers will be in there. So make sure you know them. And when it comes to note taking as well, take your summaries down. What is the underpinning things being stated? What is the underpinning concepts you need to take away with you? When I'm teaching and giving my tutorials, I will look in most instances to do that, to give you the main takeaways that should be on your piece of paper. When you're writing, do not duplicate what is on the board. Try to put it in your own words. Because if you're scribbling down what's up there, the chances are you're never going to learn it. And when you go away later to try to digest it, you might not find that so easy. So sometimes just sit back and listen. Because if you sit back and listen, you'll be more likely to learn than if you're sitting there vivaciously copying down what either myself or Nico or Dr. Marshall might already have on the board or on the slide. So that's important. And remember, in contrast to the old days, that's my generation now, don't forget these are videos. You can pause them, you can rewind them, you can make notes at the time that there's a certain piece of information you're interested in, come back to that. And unlike the tutor, the video is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. You can rewind it, come back, and it's there for you, as long as you pay the subscription, that is. But anyway, these are a couple of words and nuggets I wanted to give you, because I'm sure I've been rambling on for long enough. I wanted to get this in before, 25 minutes is about long enough. So I'm going to, stop now and say thank you for listening to me. And regardless of who you are, where you are, what your plans are, I wish you the very best with it, and hope these nuggets of wisdom have been useful to you. Thank you very much.